So I'm working on this question myself right now, which is how much is the law as it stands, and also how it should be, a beast of what's called negative peace? If you're unfamiliar with the concept of negative peace, there's this excerpt from MLK's letter from Birmingham jail that I feel like hits it really well. And I'll just, this is an excerpt, and there's like if you want to read the full letter, it's, everywhere. And I'd actually encourage you to do so. The letter from Birmingham jail is excellent. But anyway, here's the excerpt. Uh, uh, First, I must confess that over the last few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. And it's almost that last line. We're going to come back to that one, lukewarm acceptance. But basically, the idea is positive peace is when people actually get along, when they're happy to be alongside each other, when there are good relationships, friendships, people treat each other well. Negative peace is just an absence of violence, so to speak, of direct violence. And I don't know. This is just something that frustrates me extraordinarily because if we talk about the law, most people, well, a lot of people in the law and a lot of judges and a lot of what people demand from the law is precisely order and not justice. And I think the current state of legal affairs is often one of that's very focused on order. And it's also frustrating because a lot of demands from outside the law, they claim to be in the interest of justice, but they're really just in the interest of politics. So there's and that's a lot of the reason why the judiciary focuses so much on order. Probably is there's so many cries from outside that seek to politicize the judicial branch. One of the really common reactions has been to refuse to consider justice practically at all, and to just focus on order or following precedent. And specifically, to be clear, the reason why I'm thinking about this issue right now is specifically because I just read about 80 pages on stare decisis, which is very much an order-focused legal paradigm. And if you're unfamiliar with stare decisis stands for the idea of letting the decision stand, so not overturning prior decisions, which I found the whole discussion somewhat even though I agreed with the author in broad strokes, it's like I found the discussion fairly frustrating, not because the author, I disagreed with the author particularly, but because I find discussions of stare decisis largely unproductive. It's so focused on that order and in terms of setting up a law that is predictable rather than a law that is good. And certainly, good law requires a degree of predictability. Predictability isn't irrelevant to good law, but it's far from the only thing that the law needs to strive for. So, bringing this back round, it's one of the things I get frustrated with because it really is the sense I get from the opinions I read, and especially the legal scholarship I read, and what people demand from the courts, and also what the courts feel they're obligated to do from a scholarly perspective, especially not necessarily from a layman's perspective, is to serve order rather than justice. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that there's a lot of dispute over what justice is in our country. So the notion is let Congress handle that. Obviously, Congress doesn't really do much of anything these days. Well, it does, but, it doesn't fix a lot of the big problems. And it's not that, Congress doesn't have its role in it, but it, to me, I don't know. Maybe rather than diving into all the semantics and the specifics of judiciary versus legislature, to me the issue is more so that across our society, this lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering to me, not just MLK, but to me, than outright rejection. Because it's I know there are a lot of disputes over what's the right way to handle certain issues. There are good reasons for that. A lot of these issues are difficult. They are hard to figure out. But that isn't an excuse to not care. And specifically, like, I feel like if people genuinely understood, like, if you really understand how important it is to treat each other well, and if you really want positive peace, if you want a nation that's happy, or a nation that gets along, that isn't just at war, if you have goals beyond just avoiding warfare and absolute abject misery, like, if you have goals beyond that and you actually want people to have communities and happiness and, like, welfare and things like that, like, this lukewarm approach to justice doesn't do it. And, like, the law is not established as a discipline that zealously seeks the truth, and I'm not comfortable with that. As a law student, which is great. It's great to be graduating and be in this position anyway. But yeah, it feels like we need to push harder. And that there are ways to set up our legal system to fight for justice and good. And for our judiciary to be a vivacious part of the fight for good governance and for a prosperous, genuinely peaceful and peacemaking society. So yeah. And to be clear, this isn't just an issue of, like, you may be coming at this discussion with priors about which nation exists in, or not which nation, which justices you might think of coming from this direction. But the reality is this is pretty much every justice. It's like, whether you can, like, I'm pretty critical of the notion that, like, certain justice, like, that there exist left or right wings of the court. That assumption breaks down a lot when you actually study the court. But whether you're fans of Ginsburg or Sotomayor or Kagan or Scalia or Alito or Thomas or Roberts or Kennedy, Breyer, whoever, or the more recent justices like Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Jackson, I'm spacing on the one, Barrett. The reality is pretty much all of these justices are coming from what feels like a very negative, like a very orderly position, or an order-oriented position. And there are rare hints that run in the opposite direction. One of the decisions I think is one of the opinions. It's not a decision. One of the opinions that I think is one of the most important I've ever read is the dissent to Snyder v. Phelps, which is exclusively written by. It's only Alito. So Snyder v. Phelps. It's this decision. If y'all remember the Westboro Baptist Church, they had a shtick around protesting funerals. Like basically like very like very aggressive, hateful messages about like genuinely homophobic messages about like they'd go to military funerals and say that, like, a soldier was killed because the United States supports homosexuality. That's basically what the Westboro Baptist Church would do, if you're unfamiliar with them. And they'd protest these funerals on the regular. And in Snyder v. Phelps, the decision is an 8-1 decision. So every justice except for Alito all said that what the Westboro Baptist Church was doing was protected by the First Amendment. So that includes, that includes Ginsburg, that includes Sotomayor, that includes Kagan, that includes Justices Breyer and Kennedy as well. So it's bizarre that Alito is the one who writes the dissent here, because he is actually pretty pro. Like, Alito is generally pretty pro First Amendment. Like, he's very and like he is quote unquote he's on what people call the right wing of the court. But he's the only one saying that protesting like a soldier's funeral, protesting at a soldier's funeral, like with a homophobic message, isn't what the First Amendment is meant to protect. And I just think it's one of the most important decisions out, or the dissents rather. It's one of Alito's dissent in Snyder v. Phelps is one of the most important things out there, because it's just like, here's a quote: "Our profound national commitment to free and open debate is not a license for the vicious verbal assault that occurred in this case." And it's just like, just getting to this idea of negative peace and positive peace. It's just like, if we're content with order, then yeah, like, I don't know. There's just whispers in this dissent to me of something greater than just tolerating each other and living in a society where we barely don't hate each other. Because that's kind of what society feels like these days. It's just a bunch of people who we're all together and we barely don't hate each other. And a lot of times we do hate each other. That's not like a society I want, and that's not a society I believe in at all. And I don't think the First Amendment requires what every other justice says it requires in Snyder v. Phelps. I'm with Alito on this one. And it's just, I don't know. I believe in a zealous search for the truth and a law that is constantly self-correcting, that is fighting to improve itself. And that isn't a lukewarm acceptance of the idea of justice, but it is a zealous or a forceful attempt to find the truth. Just like in the sciences, it's like, or in like literature, like you have people who, and even within the law, there are people who like zealously want to find a better world and to build a better world. And when I say zealous, I don't mean like in a dogmatic or a cruel or like a narrow-minded sense. I mean in a, like, they care and they are willing to fight and struggle and handle hard ideas. They're willing to suffer, not just like in terms of like sacrifice, but like temporal sacrifice or like inconveniences or criticism, but they are willing to suffer in terms of how they think about problems and to think harder and nuanced and like give up their own ideas and accept like change and evidence and swallow their pride to accept change, and accept new ideas or modify their ideas and improve their ideas over time. Almost like, here's another reading recommendation. There's an essay called Newton the Man by John Maynard Keynes. It's almost an Newtonian sense of search and discovery and the sensation that we can fight for a better world. And I don't know, like, to me, it seems that all of society, and especially lawyers and judges, should be part of that. That we shouldn't be content or complacent with order. And that the mere achievement of a predictable law or a successful law, so to speak, or an orderly law, like, that's not enough. We need the truth. And we need to fight for it. So yeah. This may not, these are kind of just, these may not make much sense to the layman, and I apologize for that. If y'all have questions, just let me know. 'Cause it's difficult. And these are very specialized issues between like stare decisis but I just wanted to riff a bit, and hopefully this may, like, even if you don't get all of this, like if you even get some glimpses, and you maybe even be able to get more, like, go ahead and read Letter from Birmingham Jail, read The Dissent in Snyder v. Phelps, or read John Maynard Keynes' Newton the Man. All three of those things are good things to read, and they may even do you better than they'll probably do you better than listening to me. So I'm just trying to work through these issues, and I wanted to do it just by talking. So hopefully, like, let me know if this is beneficial at all, because I don't know. It helps me to know. But yeah. It's good to believe in a better world, and I just get endlessly frustrated as a law student, because it just feels like we're in that lukewarm acceptance phase. It's like because everybody cares on some level about justice, but I feel like if people saw or like had a lively sense of what justice is, this lukewarm acceptance or a lukewarm fight for justice doesn't make sense. Because it's like if you actually get it, it like it lights a fire under you. It's not possible to be lukewarm if you actually understand the fire, like the fires of righteousness, so to speak. So let's all strive for a kinder, gentler, more righteous future. Whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a judge, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a cashier, whether you're a construction worker, whether you're a father or a mother or a sibling or a daughter or a son. Whoever you are, whoever thou art, play well thy part. That's probably, I don't think that's exactly how the Shakespeare quote goes, but you know. Fight for positive peace, y'all. Fight for positive peace. Au revoir, and take care. Ugh.